Do you find yourself to be a little bit boring, but you want to spice things up? Well, live your life on the edge with the Ford Edge. That's right, right behind me today, I have a 2020 Ford Edge with over 150,000 miles. These are kind of like the ultimate suburban crossover vehicle. Today, we're going to take a walk around the outside. We're going to talk about the common problems, and then we are going to decide if the Ford Edge is a buy or a bust. Starting our walk around on the Ford Edge. Now, I think Ford did a really nice job on these. I think that's a clean look. All of their cars, actually, for this generation, I thought looked pretty nice. Kind of like an Aston Martin SUV. They definitely stole some design cues from them. As far as wear and tear, this thing has actually held up remarkably well. I got no paint issues to speak of. I got no rust issues to speak of. None of them are extremely common on these either. They hold up really nicely. Even the black plastic and things doesn't really show a lot of fading or issues that way. Yeah, you can have some headlight oxidation as they age, but honestly, it's just all very small things. This car still shows really, really well for the age and miles, and you'll kind of find that across the board. These hold up really nicely. Under the hood of our Edge here, we got the 2-liter EcoBoost turbo engine that makes 250 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. Those are very healthy numbers for these cars. The EcoBoost engines are known for putting out some really, really good and stout power. We'll talk more about that on the test drive. And while this engine does make a ton of power, let's talk about some common issues with these. Now, it's important to note that this car is a 2020. 2018 and older, they had more prevalent issues. Still some of the same ones, but they were way, way more common in the older cars. Ford did a lot to fix things here, and so a lot of these are not as common as they were in the prior Ford Edges, which might change my buy or bust decision. The number one issue that you're gonna find when you look at these cars or Google them or anything like that is EGR cooler failure. The EGR cooler will fail, it will mix the coolant in with the oil, and if you don't pay attention and notice it right away, will essentially ruin your engine. This did happen on a bunch of the older ones, and it can theoretically happen on the 2019 and up cars, but it is much less common. But that is something you want to look out for. Check the oil, make sure that there's no you're not losing any coolant, anything like that, but you're very unlikely to see it on these newer ones. It was way more common on the older cars. Now, as I said, this is an EcoBoost engine, which does mean that it is a turbo engine. And turbo wear is common across really almost any small engine like this. However, these are pretty stout ones, and it's not as common as what you would have seen back in the day. They did have a bunch of EcoBoost failures, turbo failures back in the day. Really not too much of an issue, and most of the time, as long as you keep up with oil changes and maintenance, you'll probably be good to go for 250,000 miles before you really have any major turbo wear. Now, one of the more common causes for a check engine light on these is for the evap system and one of the tubes that fails. And Ford actually has a service bulletin out about it, and generally it's a fairly easy issue to fix. It's well known, but it is something that if you run the codes and you notice that you have an evap light, a lot of times that will be the failure point. Now, a lot of cars have switched over to being direct injection. This is one of them, and there has been some confusion out there, even on my videos. When people hear the engine running, they think it's ticking or there's a problem with it. That is just the injectors doing their job. Kind of sounds like a sewing machine running or something like that. It's not the best sound in the world, but it is completely normal and is not some mechanical failure type of ticking. So if you listen to one or you're test driving one and you think, oh man, that sounds bad, a lot of times the ticking sound is just the injectors working. Now, the one downside of direct injection is that the fuel never gets a chance to clean the engine, and then there will be carbon buildup inside, which as they age can cause you some problems, lack of power, hard starts, or just running rough. So you do have to get in there and clean up some of the ports and things to ensure that your engine keeps running properly. Now, this engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission that does have one problem that is somewhat prevalent on them, but you really got to keep up with the maintenance on, and that is some torque converter issues. You need to take them on a good test drive and make sure that there's no torque converter shutter or anything like that, as well as if the transmission has been maintained well, you probably won't have a lot of issues with it, but keep up with the maintenance on it. If you're looking at that used one, ask about if the transmission fluid has ever been changed, and just make sure that it shifts through all the gears well. If you are looking at one with 150,000 miles on it and it's still shifting pretty well, and you change the fluid, keep up with it, you'll probably be okay for many miles to come. Another thing to check on if you're test driving one of these, this is an all-wheel drive model. And if you get in and you test drive an all-wheel drive one and it binds when you make sharp turns or anything like that, there's a coupler in the driveline towards the back of the vehicle back there for the all-wheel drive system that is known to fail. It is a little bit expensive, but not terrible. I wouldn't be too worried about it, but it is a common failure point on these. Otherwise, you could have some issue with the rear differential or something like that, but that is not nearly as common. It's almost always that coupler. Overall, I'm glad that Ford has improved this powertrain from some of the older Ford Edges, which, you know, weren't as reliable. And I think most of the time, if these maintenance is kept up on them, you're going to get a lot of use out of these cars. Moving on to the interior of our Ford Edge here. And I'll tell you right off the bat that I think Ford does a pretty good job with their interiors. They're not perfect. There is some hard plastic in places, but they hide it pretty well. Things like the dash, the upper parts of the door panel, things like that are all soft to the touch. And I got to tell you, while I think this particular one has been very well cared for, these hold up extremely well. Almost no wear showing on the seat at all. The steering wheel, same deal. Ford uses a leather on the steering wheels that I don't think feels as luxurious as some cars out there, but it also wears better than most of them, so it looks better for the long haul. The seats are very comfortable. There's just not a lot of things for me to talk about as far as wear and tear on the inside. Now, as far as electronics, there is a few main things that we need to talk about, and it's all infotainment and, you know, tech related things here. Number one thing is Ford cannot make a backup camera that works well with their screen. They are known to glitch, freeze, have just a bunch of different problems, and it's across almost every single one of their vehicles, and these are no different. Sometimes you end up just having to replace the whole radio as well because these systems just aren't great and they fail internally. They're known to be very glitchy. All infotainment systems have some issue, but Ford is known to be some of the worst, unfortunately. Now, this car is not equipped with a sunroof, but if they are, those are also a somewhat common failure point. Whether they don't work or operate properly or they leak or anything like that, kind of a common issue on these cars. So it's honestly better if you get one without the sunroof. Moving on to the rear seat of our Ford here. And I gotta tell you, this is one of the softest seats that I've sat in recent reviews, and I actually really enjoy that. So many auto manufacturers have gone the route of doing really hard and plywood almost feeling seats, and this is nice, soft, comfortable. I got pretty good leg room. This seat is where I would sit up front, and I got great headroom. So unless you're like over 6'3", something like that, you're probably gonna be able to fit back here without a lot of problems. They ran the same material on the door panels and things as they did up front, which is a nice touch. They didn't cheap out there. And it has a household outlet in the center console. Again, no real wear or tear to talk about back here. It's a really nice rear seat area, and you could road trip with no problem. Moving on to the rear hatch area on the Edge, and I gotta tell you right now, it is absolutely massive. You can take 2 suitcases for every person inside of this car. It also has electronic drop over on the other side, but they don't come up automatically, so, you know. But beggars can't be choosers. This is a massive trunk area. No problem bringing anything you need along with you. Pulling out onto the road now in our Ford Edge, and wouldn't you know it, we got a nice clear stretch of highway in front of us right off the bat, so let's get on it. I'll tell you what, we might have to give that one another shot. It was okay, but not remarkable. I would say I thought it was going to feel a little bit more impressive than that with the power numbers in this size of a car, but we'll give it one more pull here before the end of the test drive. Now we are on a bumpy back sort of road here, and this thing is quiet inside, and I have no clunks at all in the suspension. But there's a few common suspension things that we need to talk about. Number one, if you notice a humming, ABS light, things like that, is wheel bearings. These are known to have wheel bearings that fail prematurely, 75,000 miles maybe. So that's something you're probably going to want to look at, especially if you're test driving one. You can have other clunks and things as well, CV axles, bushings, things like that, but honestly, nothing super common. Now, folks who are shopping for one of these, fuel mileage is probably one of their number one questions. These guys are rated at 21 in the city, 28 out on the highway. Now, I thought with the turbo small engine, it might do a little bit better than that, but for this size vehicle and the amount of space that you have back there, I really can't complain with those numbers. Getting almost 30 out on the highway is pretty good. And if you own one of these, I want to hear down in the comments what your experience is as far as fuel mileage, what you're actually getting. And on this test drive, just for fun, I'm going to show you, we are going to turn very tight here on pavement and make sure that we don't hear any clunks from the all-wheel drive system. Get on it a little bit, go slow. I got nothing. So I think we are good. There's no issues with that coupler or any all-wheel drive issues there. It was very, very smooth. We are at a stop sign now, and we are going to get on it one more time from a stop. Okay. Much more impressive. That's actually kind of the opposite of a lot of the turbo cars I've driven. That was much quicker off the line than it is kind of merging here. Honestly, transmission shifts really, really well. I know they can have those torque converter issues, and if it's not shifting extremely smoothly, I think you probably have an issue, because this thing is shifting very well through the gears, very quick. I got no complaints as far as that. Actually, in so many ways, these are a better vehicle as far as your actual driving experience and day-to-day life than some of its competitors from Honda, Toyota. They are rougher around the edges. Now, I don't know that this is as reliable as they are. In fact, I would say that it's not. But it really is a great driving experience, and that's been that way. I drove a Ford Explorer, which are not really similar to these, but still a Ford SUV, and I was impressed with how that drove and how quiet it was inside and things like that. They just feel more refined than some of the other cars out on the market. Back from the test drive, and now it's time to decide if the Ford Edge is a buy or a bust. Test drive went pretty well. I really do like how these drive. I think they are a good fit for most people's lives out there. And I think if they've been maintained, can serve someone pretty well. But there is a couple things we want to talk about first. The market on these cars is somewhere right around $10,000. You might see them in worse condition or higher miles for a little bit less on Facebook Marketplace or something, but that's a pretty close number most places in the country. Now, as far as the things to look out for, it's really just take it on a good long test drive and make sure that the fluids look good and the transmission is shifting smooth. Maintenance on these guys is key and will definitely play a role in how long this thing will last. Today, I am going to call the Ford Edge a buy. I think they do need a little bit more maintenance, and I don't know that they're quite as reliable as some of the Japanese competitors out there, but I also think that they are a lot less expensive and offer a lot of value. Now, if you're in the market for one of these, check the description down below. You can check this one out or some other great cars. Click the link down there. Also, if you have one of these and you think that I missed something or there's something you want to add, I want to hear all about your experience. So please put that down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you following along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.